Hello, I'm Maria Economou, and I'm Professor of Digital Cultural Heritage at the University of Glasgow in the UK. I'm giving the talk today on behalf of the team, which included Dr. Hilary Yang and Dr. Emilia Sosnowska, who were researchers on this project. This presentation is part of a session which looks at inclusive heritage futures, and the main focus here is on emotional engagement and digital storytelling. Visits to museums and heritage sites are traditionally said to result in meaningful learning outcomes. This has often been defined quite narrowly in the past, focusing more on the communication of facts and cognitive gain from the side of visitors, ignoring the complex ways that visitors construct meaning and the role that affect plays in the visitor experience. However, the recent turn in museological theory and practice away from the one-way cultural transmission paradigm has brought to the fore the many other aspects that affect the museum visit and are valued by visitors, such as social interaction and engagement with others, having a restorative or even numinous experience of deeper engagement, awe and reverence. The role of affect in shaping the museum and heritage experience has started to be increasingly recognized, while there has also been work recently on affective practice as a basis for critical social research. However, this is still an emergent field, and few coherent frameworks exist for creating or evaluating emotional engagement with cultural heritage, and there is even less work of testing this in practice in the field. This gap also extends to digital heritage experiences, such as virtual museums, which have been rapidly expanding in the last years, taking advantage of the features that digital technologies support for interpreting collections and sites, yet have also followed largely a traditional communication paradigm, privileging didactic educational objectives, ignoring the visitor's agenda and social context of the visit, thus missing the opportunity for creating more effective and engaging experiences. This is highly problematic, as many, if not most, heritage sites, as well as museum archaeological displays, have few surviving material remains that can easily engage visitors on their own. In these cases, the fragmentary nature of the material and the lack of textual or other sources make it challenging for conventional means of interpretation to make them relatable to visitors' lives today, as well as help them imagine inclusive heritage futures. In order to address this significant gap, we set up EMOTIVE, a 3-year European Horizon 2020 research and innovation project, which ran from 2016 to 2019 to explore this in depth in a real cultural heritage context. EMOTIVE aimed to support cultural heritage and creative industries in creating digitally mediated experiences that draw on the power of emotive storytelling, that is, storytelling that can trigger visitors' emotions. This focused on the premise that emotionally engaging experiences can help cultural heritage visitors connect more deeply to the collections, sites, and exhibition themes, and relate this meaningfully with their lives. In this presentation, we focus on one of the two EMOTIVE cultural heritage sites, where we tested this in relation to Roman Scotland and the Antonine Wall UNESCO World Heritage Site. This involved designing 2 digital storytelling experiences for visitors to the Hunterian Museum in Glasgow. The experiences there raised the challenge of balancing the accurate contextualization of historic information and emotional engagement in cultural heritage storytelling. We also tested dialogic approaches to digital heritage interpretation and the importance of social interaction, which we argue are all key components for shaping inclusive futures. In common with many archaeological sites, the Antonine Wall we used in this project, despite being an important part of the frontiers of the Roman Empire, running for about 60 kilometers in Scotland and including numerous forts, fortlets and other sites, and having a major role in the complex relationship between Romans, locals, and others who inhabited it, is in many parts today difficult to make sense on the ground because of the material it was built of, turf. In order to address this gap, we designed two stories, one based on the character of a Roman centurion, Ebucius, and the other about a Caledonian slave girl, to help visitors connect with the Antonine Walls site. We also wanted to encourage them to engage with the objects on display in the museum, addressing universal themes such as love, family, and work, supporting emotional engagement through sympathy or even empathy. We also wanted to challenge stereotypes and encourage critical reflection and thinking about the role of borders and the relationship between Romans and the locals, among other things, as well as issues of identity. So, for example, in the story of Ebucius, screenshots of which you see here, key themes and events in his life connect to the objects on display through a much more personal narrative. I'll let you hear from Ebucius introducing himself.
I'm Ebucius. I was a soldier with the Roman army at the Antonine Wall. Around you in the museum are some of the things we left behind. From them, experts decipher where we lived, the food we ate, the clothes we wore. They can tell you what we worked at, how we relaxed, the way we fought. But they can't tell you about my feelings. They don't know what I dreamt about or who I loved, what made my pulse quicken or my heart sing, and no one knows my own personal stories.
The users in this story are asked to help Ebucius make a life-changing decision. Should he leave his family and follow the Roman army when it retreats further south? Or should he become a deserter and stay with his family? Key objects on display at the museum are woven into these personal narratives. At the end of the different story strands, the section on the facts behind the story explain what the archaeological and historical record tells us about the objects that were mentioned in the story and are on display. This is one of the possible ways that Ebucius tried to address the challenging issue of balancing facts and fiction, keeping this engagement in the storytelling and the immersion, but also distinguishing between what we know and what is fiction. It's not easy to decide how to do this best, and the different approaches that should be used depending on the different contexts. The second Hunterian on-site emotive experience is titled Views on Verecunda's Life, a digital window to the Scottish Roman past. This is a multi-part, facilitator-led, in-gallery experience created for 4 concurrent users, actively encouraging social interaction. It focuses on the story of a local Caledonian 15-year-old slave girl, Verecunda, who worked at the Roman commander's house in Barhill Fort, one of the Antonine Wall sites. It aims to encourage reflection about the past, particularly in Roman Scotland, challenge stereotypes about life in the frontiers of the Roman Empire, and link with users' life today through exploring the issue of identity in the past and today. After the users get to know each other, the facilitator explains to them the use of archaeological historical evidence underpinning the Verecunda story in front of the gravestone engraved with the name Verecunda in the Hunterian's Antonine Wall display that you can see here. Then users are immersed in a VR environment using Oculus Go headsets, introducing Verecunda's life in the Barhill Fort. First, this is in the kitchen where she works, with the users only listening to her voiceover indicating that she's upset and needs to leave. Then the camera view of the video moves through the kitchen's window, which is based on the real window on display at the exhibition, and links with the title of the story, to take the user to a flyover of Barhill Fort. During this, users see the Antonine Wall and the surrounding area, the buildings, as well as get glimpses of various characters who knew Verecunda at different stages of her life. After the VR videoscape, users are given a magic window each and are encouraged to use this to guide them as they move on through the Antonine Wall display to do a character-driven exploration of the related objects that show different aspects of life along the Antonine Wall. The magic window, as the one you can see being used here, is in fact a smartphone encased in a 3D printed version of the real window on display. Strengthening the metaphor, that through this they can get glimpses of the past and see different views of the objects, supported by the narratives and the AR effects which bring them to life. Each of the 4 users gets a different character on their magic window, so they are encouraged to collaborate with each other to find out about Verekunda's identity. The characters are people who are all somehow related to Verekunda, have friends, acquaintances or family, highlighting different influence to what shaped her identity. Menna, a cook from North Africa who also works in the commander's house, representing the influence of work. Korotika, a local Caledonian farmer and friend of Verekunda, who challenged her life with the Romans, representing heritage. Julia, the daughter of the Roman commander and a friend of Verekunda, representing friendship. And Losius, her father, who has lost her and thinks she is dead, referring to the theme of family. Once the users have practiced using their magic window, they can start their experience by listening to their character's introduction. Each character then instructs the user to locate the first object in the Antonine wall display related to their character's story. After that, they are asked to frame through their magic window the related object so they can see the augmented reality effect designed for it. Here, for instance, you see the cheese press on display filling with cheese with a short animation showing the different stages of production. Or another one here is showing users how colors were used originally in the stone slabs on display. In this part, they share what each other has learned from their character about Verekunda and what influenced her identity. They then move on to discuss these influences in their lives today. Both EMOTIVE Hunterian experiences were extensively evaluated, with over 200 adult visitors and 70 children. We used a comprehensive mixed methods methodology, and although most of the methods used are well tested in the cultural sector, more broadly in social sciences research, the emotive evaluation experience so far has shown that the way they're adapted, contextualized, and combined, depending on each case study, are important elements for all digital heritage research which require time, reflection, and refinement. As you can see from some of the quotes included in the slide, engaging with the story increased users' learning and understanding, engagement, as well as emotional connection. Engaging with the objects on display was specifically mentioned as a key component of their on-site experience by some of the users in their evaluation. Users felt emotionally connected with the characters in the story and expressed empathy for them, although the effect was less strong on Ebusius on how relevant they felt this was to their own life compared to Verekunda. Users related the emotive experiences connecting objects and places to their own personal perspectives, such as the one here on working with source communities. It was encouraging for us to see that the emotive experience did not break, but on the contrary supported and even encouraged social interaction, even in the case of Ebusius, which didn't necessarily involve groups. In the case of Verekunda, the evaluation showed that the facilitated dialogue between the users helped them reflect deeper and make connections with their present lives. The use of different characters helped also highlight different perspectives and was effective in challenging stereotypes. It also seemed that users appreciated the use of VR for contextualizing the objects on display and of AR for showing their original use and not just enjoying the wow effect. As is obvious from some of these quotes from the public demo of EMOTIVE, where users refer to the connection between story and objects, but also how the magic window helps them open up and beyond the object case. The experience from both designing as well as evaluating the two stories offered some broader lessons for digital heritage interpretation. It confirmed the importance of social interaction and particularly of dialogic approaches to museum visiting for supporting emotional engagement. Reenactment through critical conversation and through personal decision-making encouraged the difficult to achieve deeper learning and action-taking processes. It was useful to observe that AR and VR could be integrated effectively into a social or group museum experience, Though interestingly, the human-facilitated dialogue at the beginning and end of the experience was a vital part complementing the technology-supported parts, where combined with a critical dialogic framework, digital storytelling can help support emotional connections that can lead to inclusive heritage futures. Thank you very much.